guest audience, welcome to another episode of Connect First. I'm your host, Command Sgt Major Shawn Carns, and joining me today is former First Corps Command Sgt Major and the 3rd SEAC, Wayne Troxell, and by the way, a brand new author in his book, Surrender or Die. So I'll go ahead and turn it over to you, Sgt Major Troxell, for any opening comments.
Hey, Shawn, first of all, thanks for your leadership. You're doing phenomenal work as Courage 7. You know, I thought I was the best Corps CSM there ever was, you know, but, you know, the guys behind me, but, you know, Grinston, Tagalakad, and everybody, and now you guys are setting the bar even higher. And it's, yeah, just seeing you where you're at now and knowing you now for the past 7-8 years and first meeting you in Honduras and everything, I'm just so appreciative that you're where you're at now and what you're doing for the troops of First Corps. So it's an honor for me to be here, and I appreciate the opportunity, brother.
No, of course, and of course, thank you for being here. It's very important because today we're going to talk about joint, which Sgt Major Troxell has a lot of experience on, and we're also going to talk about transformational leadership and then transitioning out of the military, which Sgt Major Troxell does quite a lot today. So first we'll talk a little bit about joint. And you know, the first time I met you was when I was the JTF Bravo in Honduras, Sergeant Major, and you're the SEAC. And we met in one of the hotels up in Tegucigalpa. And the first question you asked me was, hey, what are you doing in Honduras? You know, I went through a kind of list of stuff I've been doing. He goes, good, because I was about to chew your butt if you weren't doing anything. You know, and I think it's very important when you get in positions, and I didn't exactly, you know, get any education on joint. I think, you know, somewhat just being proactive and talking to people, finding out what's going on in the country, what's their culture like, where they're at, and how can we make it better, right? So that was kind of the way I did it. Plus, getting good mentorship from you and then the South Combs Sergeant Major really helped me out down there in JTF Bravo.
Yeah, so, you know, service identity is important in everybody. So we want people to be proud that they're a soldier and everything. But when you get into an environment, especially as a senior enlisted leader, as a command sergeant major, and you realize you got Navy, Air Force, Marines, you have multinational partners, and in your case down there, you also have to work hand in hand with the State Department and the office there in Tegucigalpa and everything. And when I got down there and saw that you had built this synergy between, you know, the State Department folks there, but also down at the air base there with the Air Force element and all the other services that were coming through there, the Marines and everything, I said, that's the way you get after it. Too many times, senior enlisted leaders don't want to branch out and learn about other militaries or other services, and they stay parochial in focusing on being a soldier, and they keep talking in Army acronyms and everything, and they're talking to a bunch of sailors who have no clue what the hell they're talking about, you know. So I think as to be successful in a joint environment, that senior enlisted leader has to be learning every day. Mm-hmm. And you know, my last 10 years of my career, I was joint. As the First Corps Sergeant Major, we came back from Afghanistan. We started this rebalance into the Pacific. And so with our Pacific partners, with other USFK in Korea, U.S. Army Japan, and all these others, I knew we had to build relationships with. And then, you know, going to USFK to be the Sergeant Major there, now I'm responsible for all these other services, plus the United Nations sending states, plus the Koreans and everything. And then as the SEAC, every day as the SEAC, I took something home with me to study and read, whether that was the other services campaign plans, what they were doing to get after leader development, Air Force enlisted personnel reports, you know, or fit reps by the Marine Corps, understanding what all these other services were doing, because I think in order to be best effective in a joint environment, regardless of what service you're in, you got to be able to stand up in front of an audience and talk to people in language that they can understand. And you know, this first hit me Shawn, because I was like you know, going at First Corps and at USFK, I was doing what I thought was the right thing because nobody had ever taught me, and it just turned out that it was the right thing. So when I saw you in Honduras, I said, man, this guy's doing it just like Troxell did, you know. And I said, man, and I knew that was going to propel you. But here I was, I've been the SEAC about 2 weeks, and I get invited down to Norfolk Naval Base. And I'm invited on an aircraft carrier, the USS George Washington. And when I get piped aboard, the commanding officer says to me, welcome, you're going to do an all-call with every sailor and Marine on this ship. So down in the hangar bay. So I go down there, there's 5,000 sailors and 1,000 Marines standing up, not sitting down, standing up. They got this big Navy flag behind the podium that I'm going to talk about. And I'm like, man, I am out of my element here, wearing an Army uniform. And so I knew I had to deliver a message that would resonate with them, even though they had grown up in the Navy and the Marine Corps, and I had grown up in the Army, and I was on a Navy ship. And that's where I said, hey, I have to continue to grow and develop. I have to understand what these other services are doing, and I have to be able to speak in their language. And some people will say, man, that's a lot to do in a joint assignment. Well, if you want to maximize your effectiveness as a senior enlisted leader, then you'll get out and do it. And so the key thing is to be a learning leader in that joint environment. And sometimes, as you know, you learn from people that you outrank, you know, and you just got to be that open-minded.
Nope. And I totally agree, because as you said, some of the sergeant majors want to stay in where they're comfortable.
Exactly.
They don't want to go down them different paths because they're afraid that, you know, it's going to harm their promotions. And that's nowhere near being true. Obviously, great example you, great example me.
Yeah.
You know, and understanding that joint, was very beneficial to me. And then again, going over to CJTFO, and just not the joint, but the interoperability, working with embassies. And guess what we're doing here at First Corps? We're doing that every single day, interoperability and joint, every single day over in the Pacific, every single day. So them two assignments has really helped me out. And, you know, and to the audience, don't ever be afraid to go off on different paths.
Yeah.
It's okay.
Yeah.
It's about, hey, use it as an opportunity. I could have went down there and said, you know, this sucks.
Yeah.
But I said, you know, I'm going to take this as an opportunity to learn something new, and where the Army was going and what you're preaching was joint.
Yeah.
And I said, I'm going to go down here and learn to make myself better, and that's exactly what I did.
Well, you remember the conversation we had down there, and you were, you know, hey, I wanted to be an airborne brigade or an infantry brigade or striker brigade CSM. I said, Shawn, hang in there. You're going to be fine, because you are growing in ways that, you know, leaders in traditional positions aren't going to grow. And so you went from there and you went to, you know, CJTF HOA, and now not only do you have this joint assignment, now you have a bigger part of the multinational piece with the interoperability and everything. And oh, by the way, you're right there on the Bab al-Mandeb Strait, where there's a lot of dang bad guys, and right across that thing in Yemen is where ISIS and you know, or Al-Qaeda in the Arabian Peninsula and all these terrorists were. And then, you know, you go to Second ID and you become the division CSM there. And so all of that experience you gain through those tough assignments, where others would say, oh, I don't want to do that. You know, I just want to be a brigade CSM. I got nothing but soldiers. Well, some guys in brigades, they think they're in a joint assignment because they got some TAC-Ps or maybe some EW guys from the Navy. That's an Army unit, you know.
Right.
Go to JTF Bravo and have to interact with a guy that doesn't even speak English, you know, in terms of the Honduran SEAC. So, yeah, I just, that's the way to get after it, is how do I grow and develop every day in this joint multinational environment? How do I become a better leader to, you know, give back to the organization that I'm here?
Oh,
serving.
yeah, 100%. And,
Yeah.
you know, and you know, going down there, not knowing, but taking the time to learn there, as you said, about reading stuff,
Yeah.
right? Because we had, you know, Marines down there, we had Air Force down there. So guess what? Just go talk to them and ask some questions.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what I did. I said, go over there and I'll find out the culture of Air Force. Hey, go over here and talk to the Marines, find out about the culture of the Marines. Hey, go over and talk to the Navy, find out about the culture of the Marines. And then, you know, reaching out to you, reaching out to Southcom Sergeant Major and asking questions. Hey, I need some help. It's okay to ask for some help, that you don't understand something, and you're all there to guide us, and, you know, and you all did a great job helping me out. and the Marines, the Air Force, and Navy that was down there
Yeah.
answered all my questions. And, that's just go talk to them.
Yeah.
I mean, they'll give you information and talk to you about their service. They're happy to talk about their service.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, one of the key things I think for a leader is presence. And it's not so much that you're at the right place of time or at the point of friction. What happens when you show up? And so I knew you were having a transformational effect there, because every time we'd show up to those Marines in those little Quonset huts or whatever they were, and they would get excited because you were there, or the same with the Air Force unit thing. I think it was the 12th or whatever.
It was.
Yeah. They would get excited because here comes Sergeant Major Carns again. This is our Sergeant Major, And I could tell that you had built those relationships by going down there and interacting with them and being a part of what they were doing. And as you said, there are some leaders that aren't open to doing things like that because they don't understand, and they think that they have to have this aura of I know everything and I have the answers, and they're not afraid to be vulnerable to a bunch of younger troops that are in a different service to them, so they just avoid it. And that's no way to be a leader of consequence or impact. So I applaud you on what you did down there, because I saw it firsthand.
No, and I appreciate that. And you said, a key word is relationship.
Yeah.
Because I think leadership is a relationship built on inspiration, trust, serving, and caring for others. And humility's interwoven within that definition, right?
Yeah.
Because to build a relationship, you have to humble yourself, because you have to ask questions, because you don't know what you don't know, to find out, to be able to get to know what you don't know, to make you better. So building a relationship with them, I had to ask questions to humble myself, like, I don't know, can you explain to me? And they do that.
Yeah.
I go down and just sit down with them like another person and have a conversation with them. That's presence.
Yeah.
Right? That's presence. Getting them comfortable, because then that defense goes down.
Yep.
Getting them comfortable, just open up and just have a discussion with you. I'm not here to come chew your butt or, pick up the trash. That's not what I'm here. I want, find out about you and what's going on in your service, but then what's going on with you and how can I help support.
Absolutely, I'm with you. I'm not here to be the first sergeant. That ship sailed 15 years ago. I'm a Corps level sergeant major now. So, you got leaders that'll worry about that, the good order and discipline and stuff. I want to know what the heck's going on. I want to know what challenges you have. So not only can I see where I can help you, but more importantly, I can advise my bosses on what's going on, and by delivering that pulse of the force.
Oh yeah, in a heartbeat. Because once you get the pulse and you're present, then you start getting commitment, right? Instead of compliance.
Yes.
Because we want commitment from them, and that's where you get the inspiration. That's where you get the trust. As we talk about this trust, 112 times in Ep.6-22, right?
Yeah.
And we talk about all the time, but how are we getting that trust with somebody and getting that commitment and its presence and talking to people and, making sure that they're empowered, making sure they have ownership of what they're empowered to do, and they're held accountable for that.
Yeah, and that's where you build self-discipline as opposed to discipline. It's not just willing obedience to orders. They have bought in. The subordinates, the organization has bought in, and now they're adhering to a certain level of discipline because they believe in it. That self-discipline is key, along with what you just said, so yeah.
Oh yeah, in a heartbeat. You need discipline, right? Yeah. Discipline is what gets you out of bed every morning, right? And you'll hear a lot of podcasts, different people talking, but they'll say, hey, I don't feel like going to the gym today, right? Or I don't feel like going to do PT today. Discipline gets you to go do that.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yeah.
Because believe me, I don't feel like going doing PT every single morning either. But guess what? Discipline makes me go out there and do that.
Yeah.
Because health is part of holistic health fitness, and my physical piece of it, helps out the mind, right? Because, as we talked about going down there and being negative, I could have went down JTL Brown and being negative, but guess what? I said, this is going to be an opportunity. Keep a positive mindset. It's going to help you be a better leader.
Absolutely. Now, I didn't do PT this morning. I hope you're not going to smoke my bags, all right? I had a couple business calls this morning, so I'll get it this afternoon, though.
No, you're good. You're good. There's nothing wrong with that. I did PT this morning. So, one thing I wanted to, talk to you about, and this will kind of lead into the transitioning into, out of the military, is work and life balance, right? And here's kind of the way I look at it. Number one thing, it's a time management thing, right? But, you know, to be like Mike, everyone wants to be like Mike, everyone wants to be like Kobe Bryant, to be like Elon Musk, Jeff Bezos, John Wayne Troxell, right? There's a work element everyone's got to understand. We've got to work to be successful. Me and you spent some late nights at work to get us to where we're at nowadays.
Absolutely.
Right? So to be like Mike, you have to put some work into it. And there's some long hours you have to do. But you have to also time management, plan your time. I didn't bring my planner with me today. Plan your time to be able to get also into them hobbies and at life and spending time with the family. But you got to put in the work to be successful.
Absolutely. You know, selfless service will always be an Army value, you know. And so, you know, when I became the SEAC, I knew I was representing the more than 3 million active Guard and Reserve service members across the Joint Force. And that had to be my number one priority. And that's what I had to focus on. But more importantly, my wife knew that, you know. Sandra knew what the job I was going, and every level she knew the responsibility I had and that I had to be focused on that. Being the SEAC, Sandra and I would sit down and we would go across the calendar and we would look for time that we could take mini vacations. And even now in post-military life, we do the same thing. Where can we take time to spend together? But we understand the level of commitment we have to have. And in order to be successful, you got to be committed to that. But again, how do you build in family time? How do you build in the time that you can relax and everything? But again, up front, you want to be successful. You know, I hear this all the time from, you know, when I spend with the troops, you know, I want more time with my family, okay? And I'm like, okay, yeah, all of us do. But how successful do you want to be in life? How successful do you want to be in uniform? Well, you got to put in the work. And you can't think that if you're going to give a 50% at work so you can get a 50% at home, that you're going to end up being part of the 90% that make it to the top tier levels, all right? It's just not going to happen. You know, when I was the SEAC and working on the joint staff, you know, there would be days that we would come in at 6 o'clock in the morning before the sun came up, have meetings all day, and leave when the sun came down at like 9 o'clock at night, all right? That's just the way business is, you know? And so I just think successful people realize that, and they understand that they have to have that level of commitment to excellence that will get them to where they need to. Because in the end, we all know, not only does it pay off for you as the service member, it pays off for your family, you know? And that's why military families are so important to me, because the more the spouse is involved in what the service member is doing, they'll understand the late nights and the hard work and everything because they're a part of it. The more they are, you know, not in the know and not in the information loop, the more they're going to complain about it. And the more they're going to look to blame you and General Brunson for why their spouse is working so late, you know? When if they were part of this thing together, that they would understand, okay, I know, you know, my spouse has got to put in the work. So I agree with you, brother.
No, and you know, you said a good point, is that you and Sandra sat down, just like me and Teresa sit down and look and go over my calendar, go over her calendar, and okay, then we plan our time to, you know, them date nights, them little mini vacations.
Absolutely.
And just like Sandra, Teresa has always been involved, you know, ever since I've been a staff sergeant up. She's been involved with, you know, FRG, with what we're doing. We always have discussions about what's going on, you know, within the companies, battalions, brigades. So she has a good understanding. Again, so she understands, she'll be like, yeah, I understand why he's staying late, right? And that also sets the family up for when they do have to go to deployment.
Absolutely.
You know?
Absolutely. You know, so when I was the SEAC, I was on the road 270 days out of the year because I had to get the pulse of the force for the chairman and the SecDef and the administration, but I needed to deliver that strategic why to the troops. So Sandra said, okay, what can I do on my part? She volunteered at the USO. She volunteered at the school. She volunteered at the thrift shop. She did things to give back, not just to give back, but also give her a sense of satisfaction that she was a part of this. Now, don't get me wrong, she joined me on some trips. She did 3 USO trips to, she's been to Iraq and Afghanistan. You know, she was on a Rhino bus on route Irish with me in Baghdad. She slept through the whole thing, which may not be the preferred method, you know, of going down the most dangerous route in all of Iraq.
When you're pulling security, right?
But the point is, I look for every opportunity to get her involved, and so that she understood what the service members were doing. But more than importantly, she could be a bigger voice to military families on what it means to be a military spouse and how to deal with the level of sacrifice that you have to deal with being part of an expeditionary military.
Yeah, most definitely. And since we're talking about families, you know, transition out of the military, how important is it, you know, with that communication, as you've experienced getting out of the military, and that communication through the military and in communication with the military family as you transition out of the military?
It's extremely important. You know, the #1 challenge with transitioning service members and veterans right now is the loss of purpose. And some will get out, you know, first-term soldiers will get out just to spite the military, you know, because you know, Shawn Carns made them do push-ups or something, you know, and so they want to get out as fast as they can. They don't understand the benefits they've earned as a service member through the VA and everything, and they don't even deal with that. And then some retirees are so built on selfless service that they think that filing a VA disability compensation claim is, you know, is charity or something. Well, no, it's a claim. It's a benefit that you are authorized to get for your service to your nation. So when I got ready to transition, I wanted Sandra to be a part of the whole thing with me, because we were getting ready to do something we hadn't done in 38 years. You know, I only had 2 jobs in my life when I retired. I didn't last 30 days at McDonald's, and they fired me because I couldn't get the fry machine right. And the Army kept me for 38 years and made me the senior enlisted guy in the whole dang DOD. But my point was, I wanted to do some stuff afterwards. I got fired up in my transition course that maybe I could do something in, you know, in the corporate world. And Sandra and I talked about this, and we laid out a plan, and we went out and got after it. But the bottom line is, have a plan when you get ready to transition. Your family is included, especially your spouse, and then, you know, figure out what you want to do. Set goals. They can be lofty, but they have to be attainable. Visualize as a family going through the process, and then all you have to do is go get it done and actualize, and good things will happen post-military life.
No, and I agree with you. And planning is, you know, also getting into Soldier for Life or TAP.
Absolutely.
And we have a, you know, great retired Sergeant Major Frank Handout, who does our Soldier for Life, and a great asset. And tell you the truth, this is one of the better Soldier for Life that I've seen across the military. As you know, my son transitioned out of the military, but what they do over there, they bring in people every single Wednesday to be able to do interviews, informational interviews, get information from different organizations. Every single Wednesday, different organizations come over there, and transition soldiers can go over there and talk to you know, people to help them, assist them get out.
Absolutely, and Frank does a phenomenal job here, you know, and you know, I work a lot with Frank, you know, through hiring our heroes, and you know, Frank and I have done some guest speaking together with units here on First Corps and everything. So you got the right guy over there right now. Plus, he's a former Mangudai warrior when I was the Corps CSM. So he's a pretty good dude, all right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Most definitely. And then it also goes with, you know, as we transition out, we have a whole network of people. Don't be afraid, you know, what I've learned from talking to you and talking to others, don't be afraid to reach out for help.
Yeah.
From people who've transitioned out, because you have the experience to give me, to help me be successful when I get out.
Yeah, building a network is paramount to being successful post-military life. So getting on LinkedIn and start building, you know, a network through that. Going through the SFL TAP, you know, the Soldier for Life stuff here, sitting down with Frank and his team. How do I build a resume that will be marketable to companies on the outside, that gets rid of all my military acronyms, and so that any civilian business can understand it and stuff like that? I think that is paramount. And you know, we were talking before we went on the air, I didn't know what I didn't know when I retired. So I was starting off slow in what I was doing and everything, but the more I gained experience, the more I gained traction, and the more Sandra and I, and my youngest son now is part of our company too, we came together and built, and the more we broadened our network, the more opportunities came our way. To right now, we belong to a very major business consortium. My consulting company, PME Hard Consulting, belongs to this major consortium known as Power Room, where these are some heavy hitters in there. And I'm not in there, you know, to say, hey, I'm with all these bigwigs. I'm here to learn from them. What can I do to continue to build my business? And I have a tag team partner, retired Chief Master Sergeant Tim Chachi Pachesa, who's my tag team partner with my business, that we're getting after this. But the point being is, if you want to be successful post-military life, you got to continue to be that same learning leader that you were on active duty. Some folks, when they retire, they want to go fishing, they want to sit on their back porch. I wanted to be an enabler to the force instead of an agitator, and I'm sure you get calls from agitators all the time, because when I was the Corps CSM, I would get the calls that Popeyes is charging more on base than they are off base or something like that. I didn't want to be that kind of retiree. I wanted to, how can I give back? How can I pay it forward to the future of the military? And then what can I do to build our business out here without seeming like I'm some predatory dude, you know? So. Yeah, that's what we've been doing to get after it, and every week that I'm home, Sandra and I have another meeting as a family, talking about the business, talking about what we're going to do with our next vacation. I got a speaking engagement in Vegas the first week of Vegas, so I'm taking Sandra with me, and we're gonna.
I would too.
Yeah, and we're gonna make a little mini vacation out of it, you know. So I think purpose is everything, and understanding what, you know, your benefits are, like going to the see Frank Hando and the team at the transition office and understanding everything that you are authorized to have. You know, Shawn, there's 20 million veterans in the United States right now, and only half are enrolled in VA healthcare. Now, that may be for a variety of reasons, but the bottom line is free healthcare that you've earned from active duty. Only a third of all veterans use all of their VA benefits, and the vast majority it's because they don't understand it, and because they never took the time to go and research what they're authorized to use. So my message to anybody, first of all, my first message is I'm your best recruiting NCO here and retention NCO. Some people want to get out because they think the grass is greener on the other side, but I will tell you that if they're on the fence, they need to stay in as long as they can, because they will not get the level of training, education, and experience on the outside for free that they will get in the military, and maximize that time. Some people will say, well, if I'm a signal officer and I get out after 5 years, that means I've got like 40 years to serve. Well, you're going to be competing against signal officers that retired at 20. They got 20 years of signal experience, and they retired as a lieutenant colonel. So you think you're going to be more marketable than them when you get out early? So, but if someone does decide to get out, then they need to have a plan, as you described. And they've got to be focused on that plan and go out and get after it.
No, agree. And you said, you know, grass is greener on the other side. I always say, you know, grass is green where you water that grass.
Absolutely.
Right? So wherever you water that grass. Again, thank you very much for coming on Connect First and being able to have a discussion, and I'll open it up to you for final comments.
So, you know, I'm sure I decided to write a memoir. Most of the time you see general officers and flag officers that write memoirs, but I was asked, I'm constantly asked about my time as the SEAC, my 38 years on active duty. I'm asked about combat. I'm asked about PTSD and TBI. And then I've asked constantly about when I was suspended as a SEAC and how I dealt with that, dealing with adversity. So I decided to write my memoir, and I talk about my life, my military career, but I also talk about leadership, and I talk about combat and, you know, being best prepared for the worst day of your life and everything, but also the, you know, invisible wounds of war, you know, PTSD and TBI, and the need to bring normalcy to seeking help and things like that. You know, and then I talk about family in there and how important it is to bring your family into whatever you're doing as a service member, because as you know, there's plenty of NCOs, officers, and troops out there that try to keep their spouse in the dark. And, you know, I saw this in combat during the surge when one of my platoon sergeants kept telling his wife he never went out of the wire, you know, and I was safe in the forward operating base, when in fact he was out of the wire every day. And then he happened to get killed in action by an improvised explosive device. So, yeah, it sucks that he got killed, but it sucks even worse because his wife thought he was in a safe place when in reality he was in harm's way every day. So I talk about all of that, and I didn't do this book to make money off it. I did this as a legacy item for my family. I want my grandchildren, their grandchildren, to be able to say, my great-grandfather wrote this book, and that's the best way, because you know, you can make clothing and everything and give it down, but that stuff's going to wear out. Or you can do, but a book is something that will be there forever. So that's why I did this, and why I'm so proud of the work. And I did it in 90 days. So most authors take about a year, but I knew if I procrastinated, that I would never get it done. So I told my author coach, Ann, I said, we're going to get after this. And so the majority of it, I did it between the Christmas holiday and New Year's. I locked myself in. That's why I couldn't come out and have dinner with you and Teresa, you know, Sandra and I, and I got it done. And so this is something that we're proud of. So,
well, good. Now,
thanks for having me.
Of course.
And now I can say I'm an author.
Yeah, you are an author, most definitely. So thank you very much to the audience, you know, for coming on another episode, Connect First, and thank you very much for SEAC retired John Wayne Troxell for giving us his knowledge and bestowing his knowledge on the audience in today. And this is a great book. Please go out and buy it and read it. Believe me, he moved around just as much as we moved around in PCS. So thank you very much. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Hey, thanks for tuning in to Connect First podcast, where we discuss leadership at its core. You can find Connect First on all your major podcast streaming platforms. Follow First Corps on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram for information on upcoming episodes, as well as all things First Corps. Rate, review, and subscribe to us on YouTube, and click that notification bell so you'll know exactly when we drop a new episode. Till next time.